Hey, day 31. We are back, not for the week. Today's verse comes from Song of Songs, chapter 8, verse 6b, the last part of verse 6, where it says, this about love, about a love that is not for the weak, a love that stays committed for a lifetime. It burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame. And so, Song of Songs, a book from the Bible, Hebrew language behind this actually refers to the flame of Yahweh. Right? And so the question for us today as we look at our relationship with our spouse is God in the middle? And I would say this, I'm going to assume because you're part of this devotional and you know this is a Christian devotion that yes, the flame of God is in your relationship. And I don't know where you are in your relationship with God together. Maybe one of you would feel like I've been in a longer relationship with God than my spouse, or maybe I feel a little bit stronger in my relationship with God than my spouse. I don't know where you guys are at in your relationship with God, but really this is where you're at in your relationship with God together. There is a verse from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 14, where it talks about the believing spouse actually sanctifies the unbelieving spouse. And so maybe that's where you are in your relationship with God. I do pray that both of you are open to a relationship with Jesus. Maybe one of you has a mustard seed of faith, but certainly both of you are able to say, Jesus, I believe, help me with my belief. The book of Ecclesiastes, right, says a cord of three strands. It's Ecclesiastes 4:12. Again, wisdom poetry from the Old Testament. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. Certainly, that's the God strand. And certainly, as we've been going through this together, if you missed any of these, and this is your first one, you're going to hear this, right? Praying together. And people say this: a couple who prays together stays together. Right? How do you get that mighty flame, that flame of Yahweh, into your relationship? Certainly, praying together without a doubt. I also believe this. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 19, verse 8, right? Moses permitted divorce, this is thousands of years ago, because your hearts were hard. Right? And so when Jesus talks about divorce, right, that something that we don't want, that God doesn't want in our relationship, he says it's because your hearts were hard. And when you have the mighty flame of God in your relationship, your hearts aren't going to be hard. When you're walking in a relationship with God, your hearts are always soft. Certainly it doesn't mean you're perfect. Certainly it doesn't mean there's not pain. There's not things that you need to work on. There's always things we need to work on, right? But when a heart is soft, right? When a heart is soft, that's when you will remain faithful to the end. And a heart is soft when you have that mighty flame of God. When I think about a soft heart in a marriage relationship and what God does, I think about how Jesus showed us that God is a God of mercy, a God of grace. Right, and how mind-blowing this was for the first disciples and the Apostle Paul as he wrote most of the New Testament for us, right? Grace, 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 grace. And so Paul talks about giving grace to one another. When we have that mighty flame of God in our relationship, when we are in our relationship with God, right? If Jesus said, love the Lord God with all your heart, right? If you're loving God, you're actually going to be loving each other. You're going to be giving grace to each other. And so again, that hard heart is that Pharisaical heart where it's a judgmental heart, and Jesus said, right, mercy triumphs over judgment, and blessed are those who are merciful, blessed are those who are gracious to one another, right? That is a soft heart, and that's certainly how Jesus manifests himself in our relationship with one another. When we give grace, when we're bent on grace toward one another, the scriptures say love covers a multitude of sins. Grace covers a multitude of sins. I hope you know this. You're not perfect. Your spouse isn't perfect. And so how would you actually survive a relationship with an imperfect person without grace? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. And so if we're walking in a relationship with God, we have this mighty flame. We're praying together, right? We give grace to each other. Grace, that mighty flame of God. So may you too today learn how to bring grace in your relationship to one another, because that is that mighty flame of God. God has showed himself to be slow to anger, abounding in love, abounding in mercy and faithfulness and grace. And so we need to give this to one another, because if we're receiving it, right, we're giving it. And so I don't know where you are in your relationship with God, but I am encouraging you as a spouse, and maybe just one of you has been praying this whole time out loud with the other, or maybe you haven't been with your spouse praying, but maybe today's the day. Hey, how about we just pray together? How about we grab hands, knee to knee, and just say a simple prayer? God, bring your mighty flame into our relationship even more. We can't do this without you. Teach us how to pray. Teach us how to be gracious to each other. This is day 31, not for the week. We hope to see you for Devotion 32 tomorrow. Peace.